You will never want to be intelligent again. Schopenhauer, Dark Secret of Mind. At 19, a letter from his mother changed Arthur Schopenhauer's life forever. She saw his brilliance, but also warned of a dangerous pride hiding beneath it. From that honest confrontation, Schopenhauer began a silent journey, mastering his emotions, concealing his true strength, and choosing wisdom over recognition. In this video, we explore how concealment, humility, and silent resilience became not signs of weakness, but the hidden strategies of inner freedom. Schopenhauer teaches us that true strength is not in domination, but in self-mastery. If you've ever felt the weight of others' expectations, the need to prove yourself, or the loneliness of authenticity, this journey is for you. Discover how silent victories, hidden talents, and quiet healing pave the way to the deepest kind of freedom, living true to yourself without needing the world's applause. When a mother's letter awakens the pride of youth. Arthur Schopenhauer, one of the most brilliant philosophers of the 19th century, once received a letter from his mother at the age of 19. In this letter, she did not hesitate to point out that Schopenhauer, despite his extraordinary intellect, had committed a serious mistake, an unrelenting desire to prove himself superior to others. His mother emphasized that great talent does not make a person truly valuable if it serves only to outshine others rather than illuminate genuine inner worth. That reminder, sharp yet full of love, planted the first seeds of self-awareness in Schopenhauer's mind. It made him realize that intellect, without humility and compassion, is merely a tool that harms both oneself and those around. And in a moment few would have anticipated, Schopenhauer began to look deeper within himself, not merely to become more intelligent, but to become a more profound human being. This story is not just a personal memory. It touches all of us who have once carried the burning desire for recognition, who have been wounded by judgmental gazes, who have thought that our value lies in surpassing others, but eventually, like Schopenhauer, each of us must learn the same lesson, that true value is not found in being praised, but in silent growth, in being strong enough not to need to prove anything. Schopenhauer's mother's letter was not just a reminder of humility, it was an invitation to embark on a new journey, the journey to heal wounded pride, to rediscover a purpose that does not rely on the eyes of the world, and to awaken the inner self from shallow illusions. A journey that begins with the courage to face oneself in silence, with total sincerity. When intelligence is no longer a weapon, the art of concealment. Schopenhauer gradually realized a truth that youth often struggles to accept. Intelligence is not always a gift welcomed by the world. When you shine too brightly, your light does not merely reveal your worth, it also exposes the darkness in others that they have yet to confront. Thus, instead of admiration, they feel threatened. Instead of affection, they harbor envy. From this very experience, Schopenhauer subtly developed an art of concealment. He no longer treated superiority as a weapon to compete with. Instead, he chose to appear less talented than he truly was, not from a lack of confidence, but from the understanding that in a world rife with prejudice and wounded pride, too strong a presence often invites isolation. Concealment does not mean diminishing oneself, nor does it mean denying one's talents. It is an act of wisdom, knowing when to let the fire quietly burn within, when to let others shine, and when to reveal one's true strength only at the most crucial moment. True power lies not in constant victory, but in knowing when to advance and when to retreat, like a silent yet profound current of water. Schopenhauer's art of concealment extends a silent invitation to us to stop living as though we constantly need recognition. Instead, live like someone who deeply understands their own worth without noise, without exhibition. It is this quiet inner strength that truly sets you apart in a way that is both natural and enduring. You may feel lonely when choosing this path, but remember, loneliness in preserving your authentic self is far more honorable than losing yourself within a crowd. True wisdom, as Schopenhauer realized, is not in constantly showing how clever you are, but in knowing when to veil that brilliance, allowing the soul to grow freely in peace. Concealment, ultimately, is not failure. It is how you safeguard the inner flame, waiting for a world quiet enough to truly hear you. The power of concealment. When victory comes from the unexpected, Schopenhauer understood that in life, as on the battlefield, the strongest is not the one who constantly displays their might, but the one who hides it until the decisive moment when you prevent others from seeing the full extent of your abilities. You retain an invisible advantage, the element of surprise. He realized that if you reveal all your weapons too soon, you become an easy target. But if you pretend to be weaker, allowing others to underestimate you, when the time comes, the power you unleash will catch them completely off guard. Schopenhauer did not confine this insight to abstract philosophy. He saw it reflected in ancient military strategies, in everyday conversations, and in the smallest interactions. Concealing one's abilities is not deception. It is an art of survival. It is a way to protect what is most precious within you from the scrutiny and envy of the world in meetings, debates, or even casual conversations. It is those who observe more and speak less, those who keep their depths hidden, who often control the situation without making noise. The lesson Schopenhauer left here is both practical and healing. You do not always need to prove how capable you are, and you do not need to win every confrontation to feel valuable. True strength comes from inner calm, from the ability to choose precisely when to reveal yourself. Concealment does not weaken you. On the contrary, it allows you to build a quiet but steadfast inner power, a reservoir of strength that no one can easily conquer or injure. When you no longer rush to prove yourself, you free yourself from the heavy burden of others' expectations, and that is the first step toward freedom. In a world obsessed with rapid displays and attention-grabbing, knowing when to remain silent and step back is the most powerful and silent victory of all. Silence as strategy, observing to win in a world where words are often used as weapons to seize attention. Schopenhauer chose a countercurrent strategy, to observe more and speak less, not because he lacked confidence, but because he realized that true power lies not in incessantly speaking, but in knowing when to remain silent. Observation allows you to perceive what words can never reveal: the eyes, the hesitations, the subtle shifts in gaze or gestures. All these signals are reserved for those patient enough to listen to the world whispering. In that silence, you see others more clearly, and you also come to understand yourself more deeply. Schopenhauer emphasized that in every conversation, there are usually two kinds of people: those who incessantly seek to dominate the space with their words, and those who quietly gather information, waiting for the perfect moment to express a single opinion that carries more weight than all the previous noise. And, more often than not, it is the patient ones who end up steering the course. Silence is also a form of healing. When you no longer feel the urgency to prove yourself, you give yourself the space to breathe, to feel, and to truly be present. You are no longer driven by the need to respond, but focus instead on understanding others and grasping the broader context. In that silence, your inner self grows stronger, deeper, and more resilient. But silence does not mean self-isolation. It is an active choice to speak with intention, to offer words when they genuinely add value rather than merely fill a void. It is the art of refinement, the art of influencing through restraint. Through his own experiences, Schopenhauer reminds us Not all who speak much are wise, and not all who are silent are weak. Sometimes, the greatest power lies within those who patiently wait for the right moment to turn the tide. Learning to embrace silence is not only about outmaneuvering others, but, more importantly, about mastering the impulsiveness within yourself. When pretending to be ignorant becomes silent strength, Schopenhauer once said that pretending not to know does not equate to true ignorance. On the contrary, it is a sign of the highest wisdom in a world where everyone strives to showcase themselves. It is often those who know how to hide their knowledge who truly hold control. Feigning ignorance is not about losing yourself, but about protecting yourself from envy, avoiding unnecessary conflict, and preserving the free space of your soul. When you pretend not to understand everything, you give others the chance to reveal themselves. You gather more information, and, more importantly, you avoid becoming a target in hidden battles. Plato once emphasized, wise people speak because they have something to say. Fools speak because they have to say something. This is not merely a way to distinguish intelligence, but a reminder that often silence and outward humility are the wisest strategies. When you master the art of pretending not to know, you free yourself from the compulsion to assert your identity. You relax. You observe the world as it is, and you are no longer trapped in the meaningless race of the ego. And from there, you become freer, lighter, and deeper. This act of pretending, if wielded with kindness and awareness, becomes not just a survival tool, but a way of healing. You no longer strain to prove your worth, because you understand that true value does not lie in fleeting admiration, but in the peace you cultivate within yourself. It is the silent strength of those souls who have transcended the need for acknowledgement and have begun to truly live for themselves. Planting seeds in silence. The secret to guiding others. Schopenhauer believed that true influence does not come from imposing ideas, but from the art of planting seeds naturally into others' minds in communication. Instead of trying to convince or argue to win, he chose to spark change within the other person through gentle yet profound words, patient listening, and allowing them to discover answers on their own. Planting seeds in silence is an art that requires great subtlety. You do not reveal everything you know. You do not rush to correct someone. Instead, you sow the seed of awareness and patiently wait for it to sprout when the person is ready. In this way, you neither wound their pride nor make them feel controlled or manipulated. This demands trust in the natural process of inner growth, and it is also a form of healing for yourself. Learning to relinquish the need for control, respecting the personal journey of others, and thereby learning to treat the unfinished parts of yourself with greater kindness. Such subtlety is especially necessary in close relationships with parents, colleagues, and loved ones. Sometimes, helping someone change is not about confronting them head-on, but about giving them the sense that the decision to change is entirely their own. Planting seeds without expecting immediate results requires immense inner strength. Yet it is within this waiting that we learn a priceless lesson, that true value lies not in controlling others, but in nurturing freedom within ourselves and within those we love. Protecting others' pride while staying true to yourself. Schopenhauer realized that in human interactions, pride is fragile, easily wounded by a careless remark or a tactless action. And sometimes, the most righteous thing we can do is not to prove ourselves right, but to remain silent in order to protect the feelings of others. When you expose someone's mistake in public, even if you are entirely correct, you do more than correct an error. You unintentionally wound their dignity. Such wounds often leave deeper scars than the mistake itself. Thus, Schopenhauer proposed a nobler choice: to protect the pride of others, even if it means temporarily giving up the need to display your knowledge. This is not weakness, on the contrary. It is a sign of great inner strength. You no longer need to win every conversation because you have already conquered your own ego. You are strong enough to place compassion above the need for validation. In relationships, the skillful protection of others' pride not only maintains mutual respect, but also creates a safe space where people can grow without fear of humiliation, and in treating others with such gentleness. We also learn to treat the vulnerable parts of ourselves with greater tenderness. Living without the constant need to be right or superior is not just a social strategy, it is a milestone in the journey of inner healing. For when you stop seeking victories in the eyes of others, you finally find peace within your own heart. Success without display, humility as an invisible crown. Schopenhauer understood that one of humanity's greatest traps after achieving success is the urge to show it off. In moments of victory, when admiration pours in from all sides, it is easy for pride to rise and dominate one's actions. Yet it is precisely in these moments, he warned, that boasting strips away the silent beauty of true achievement. Those who are humble after great accomplishments behave as if it were merely a small step on a long journey. They do not need recognition or applause. Their inner stillness becomes the true sign of their strength. Only when you no longer crave praise are you truly free from the snares of the ego. Humility also serves as a form of self-protection. In a world where success easily provokes envy, living discreetly and serenely safeguards your inner peace. You are not trapped by expectations, nor made a target of invisible resentments. Schopenhauer pointed out, humility does not diminish the value of achievement. It makes it more enduring and worthy of respect. Truly great individuals do not need to shout about their victories. Their achievements speak for themselves. In the quiet maturity of a developed soul, if we can maintain humility, even in our smallest successes, we are cultivating a refined form of strength, the strength of inner mastery. This is when you realize that your value does not stem from external recognition, but from your deep honesty toward your own journey. Humility, ultimately, is not about lowering yourself. It is about wearing an invisible crown, a crown of dignity, wisdom, and true freedom. The wise fool, a silent role, not to be underestimated. Schopenhauer likened those who know how to conceal themselves and feign weakness at the right moments to wise fools. In the eyes of the world, they may be underestimated, dismissed, or overlooked, yet, in truth, they are the ones who silently hold the upper hand in the game of life. By withholding their full capabilities and allowing others to feel superior, the wise fools avoid unnecessary conflicts, evade envy, and preserve precious freedom. They do not need to fiercely compete or scramble for attention, for they understand that true value lies not in immediate recognition, but in mastering their own timing and pace. This is not just a behavioral strategy. It is an inner journey of maturity. To accept being underestimated while maintaining faith in oneself requires profound inner strength and a healed ego. Only when you no longer crave constant validation can you choose to quietly observe the world and patiently prepare for your own breakthrough moment. The wise fool is in no rush. They know that all things need time to ripen, and when their moment comes, their unexpected revelation truly changes the dynamics, leaving those who once looked down on them speechless before an undeniable truth. Through this image, Schopenhauer teaches us not only social strategy, but a deeper truth, that maturity does not come from constantly proving oneself, but from the patience to preserve one's strength for moments that truly matter. Hiding one's strength, enduring misjudgment, and steadily nurturing inner power. This is not failure. It is a quiet but certain victory for those strong enough to withstand the world's impatience. Living under others' gaze. The invisible trap of society. Schopenhauer observed a bitter truth. Much of human unhappiness stems from caring too much about how others see and judge us instead of living for ourselves. We gradually learn to define our value through foreign eyes, an ever-changing and insatiable standard. Living under others' gaze is an invisible trap. It causes us to lose honesty with ourselves. We begin to do things we do not truly desire, chase goals that do not truly belong to us, all for fleeting praise or shallow admiration, yet deep down, our souls remain hollow. Schopenhauer emphasized that freeing ourselves from dependence on others' opinions is the first step to reclaiming inner freedom. When you realize that most judgments stem from others' own insecurities and limitations, you no longer need their approval to feel worthy. Letting go of the need for recognition does not mean becoming indifferent or isolated. On the contrary, it is a courageous act of affirming your right to live according to your truest self. You no longer live to meet external expectations, but to genuinely connect with your innermost needs. Living free from the eyes of others is not an act of rebellion. It is a journey of healing, a journey that leads you from the fear of rejection to the peace of a liberated soul. And within that peace, you finally touch a deeper meaning of life that no external glory can ever replace. When you no longer need consensus, you begin to hear the quiet call of your own heart. And that is the path to true freedom. Noise is not strength. The price of boasting. Schopenhauer once pointed out a familiar paradox. The loudest person in the room is often the weakest. People tend to think that the louder they speak, the more they flaunt their victories, the more they affirm their worth. But in reality, boasting only conceals a deep-rooted insecurity. Those who need to boast are often those who have yet to truly trust in their own value. They seek admiration from others, like a temporary sedative, to mask their inner emptiness. Yet the intoxication of victory fades quickly, leaving behind an even heavier loneliness. Schopenhauer did not urge us to deny our achievements. He simply reminded us that true worth does not need to scream for recognition. It radiates through calmness, consistent actions, and a humble demeanor that speaks louder than words. Boasting, in the end, does not make you more beloved. It only causes others to withdraw, to feel threatened, or to compare themselves. Meanwhile, humility opens the door to deeper connections, where people meet each other in sincerity, not behind layers of dazzling facades. And the most beautiful thing is, when you no longer need to show yourself to the world, you also no longer need to prove anything to yourself. You live freely and fully within the quiet strength of your being. Silent humility. The key to unlocking true success. Schopenhauer concluded with a simple yet profound truth. Sustainable success does not come from striving to stand out, but from silent humility in a noisy and showy world. Those who know how to conceal themselves and step back at the right moment are the truly strong ones. Humility is not about denying your worth or avoiding the spotlight. It is about being honest with yourself, maintaining equanimity, whether in success or failure, and not letting yourself be swept away by flattery or criticism. When you choose humility, you allow yourself to focus on the true journey. Instead of chasing after superficial recognition, you keep your heart pure, your mind peaceful, and step by step, you build a solid foundation without depending on the limelight. This humility, according to Schopenhauer, does not make you smaller. On the contrary, it makes you invulnerable to external upheavals, for no one can take away the self-respect of a person who no longer needs validation from others. Ultimately, true success is not the thunderous applause, but the quiet maturity of the soul, where you know who you are, what you live for, and nothing outside can shake that certainty. Healing the invisible wounds. When you no longer need recognition, when we live in anticipation of admiration, we are easily wounded by indifferent gazes or careless judgments. Each such moment carves an invisible scar deeper into our hearts, increasing our thirst for validation and trapping us further in a cycle of insecurity. But Schopenhauer, with profound insight, shows us another way. Healing does not come from receiving more recognition, but from no longer needing it. When you no longer depend on praise or external approval, you truly reclaim the right to define your own worth. Forgiving yourself for the times you yearned too much, hoped too much to see yourself reflected in others' eyes, is the first step. You stop blaming yourself for old wounds. You understand that every journey toward growth passes through incomplete desires, and that every wound had its reason for being. Healing is not forgetting the past. Healing is being able to look back at everything with gratitude for the shortcomings and failures taught you how to love yourself more deeply. When you no longer seek recognition, you not only free yourself from the gaze of the world, you find a deep peace, a steady inner space, where you no longer need to be anything other than yourself. The true meaning of life, when you live for yourself, not for judgment. We grow up surrounded by countless expectations from family, society, friends, and even from those who barely understand us. Each expectation is like an invisible garment draped over us, gradually muffling the true voice of our hearts. And one day, we ask ourselves, am I living for myself, or merely to please others? Schopenhauer gently suggests another path. Live not to prove anything, but to return to your deepest, truest self. When you stop measuring your worth through others' eyes, you begin to hear the silent call of your inner being, the things you love, the values you long to preserve, the dreams long buried beneath layers of expectations. The true meaning of life does not come from achieving society's standards of success. It comes from the harmony between what you think, feel, and live every day. It is when you walk forward, quietly perhaps, but with sure steps, because you know you are walking in the right direction toward yourself. Living for yourself is not selfishness. It is the courageous act of a soul that honors its inner truth, and thus can love the world more fully and unconditionally. Because only when you live authentically can you offer the world the most beautiful parts of who you are. The awakening of the soul, stepping out of the shadow of expectations. When trapped by others' expectations, our souls live inside an invisible cage. Every decision, every action is overshadowed by fear. Fear of disappointment, fear of judgment, fear of being unloved. But Schopenhauer shows that only by stepping out of that cage can we truly begin to live. The awakening of the soul is not a sudden explosion. It is a quiet process, where little by little you realize that true worth comes not from pleasing others, but from absolute honesty with yourself. You learn to let go of imposed expectations, to release the need to be understood, praised, or celebrated. In this new light, you begin to see life with different eyes. Failures no longer crush you, and successes no longer intoxicate you. You realize that all these ups and downs are mere ripples across the surface of a lake. What matters is keeping your soul still and steady through every moment. Awakening also means forgiveness. Forgiving those who made you doubt yourself. Forgiving yourself for having been lost or fragile. For within every wound lies a lesson, and within every lesson, an opportunity to grow. Stepping out of the shadow of expectations, you are no longer a victim of external gazes. You become the one who lights your own path, guided by your deepest inner strength and courage. Conclusion, or perhaps a beginning. The journey that Schopenhauer leads us through is not merely a lesson in social strategy. It is a profound invitation to stop living under others' gazes and to begin walking on the free path of your own making. we have traveled through the landscapes of concealment, humility, and self-acceptance in silence. Each part of this journey does not make us smaller. It helps us become stronger from within, a strength that needs no external validation. Healing does not mean forgetting the wounds, but transforming them into strength. Finding the meaning of life is not about seeking grand achievements, but living true to yourself in the smallest of moments. And awakening does not come from great storms, but from the quiet courage to face the truth within. When you no longer need to win others' approval, you truly win. And that is the most enduring victory, the victory of a free soul. Thus, this journey does not truly end, it only begins within you.